A lot of trans people are getting underdosed because the endocrinologists and whatnot do not know anything about like trans healthcare, don't want to educate themselves on it, and they think that like what applies for like, for example, a cis woman would then also automatically apply for a trans woman. A friend of mine said that they underdose trans people and make them jump through countless hoops purely to discourage them from transitioning. I can't see that. What is one thing you know that you wish you had known before about getting bottom surgery? I think the biggest problem when it comes to being trans and transitioning, medically transitioning and so on, is just the idea that like it's not going to be perfect. It's not the same as being born female. You're always going to like find a reason why it's like not good enough. But I knew that going into bottom surgery. I knew what it was going to be like when I'm going to start transitioning. I knew that there are things that I can't control, that I can't change, that nothing is going to like make up for the fact that I wasn't born female, I wasn't assigned female at birth, and I wasn't raised as a cis girl. Even if I had like the same struggles when it comes to like, you know, being over 6 feet tall and, you know, that was like well above like the average and feeling tall. Maybe I still would have had like the same issues. Maybe I would have still had like the same, I don't know, hairline or whatnot, right? You never know. Women come in all shapes and sizes. So like the idea that like, I don't know, you have this body, you want to get to this body, right? It's not like that. This is not like how it works. This is not the male body and this is not the female body, right? We're not like these strict sizes and you wanna go from square to triangle. This is not how it works. So you'd never know, obviously. A lot of insecurities come from the fact everything that I'm going to like put into the fact that I have to put effort into the transitioning process and I have to do all these things. These are things that I wouldn't have to do, that wouldn't have been necessary in order for me to, you know, look into the mirror and view myself as valid as like a woman. I wonder how body fat redistribution is gonna work. It can adjust your body shape a lot, actually. And I think that like now after HRT, when I'm wearing like stereotypical mass clothing or when I'm wearing like stereotypical feminine clothing, it sits differently on my body. And like clothing is not inherently gendered. It is how the clothing sits on your body that can make like a difference. And I think after HRT, I feel more comfortable wearing like any type of clothing because of that fact, because it's going to look more feminine on me. Do you think that living in Germany and giving them more progressive and historical relevancy policies with minority communities, you've received more accurate or pertinent information than someone say in the UK, US, or Canada? I mean, I had to put in a lot of effort in order to learn about like trans topics. When I went on HRT, I had an endocrinologist who gave me the recommended dosage when it comes to like estrogen of someone who is menopausal and needs like the additional estrogen, and gave me the testosterone blocker dosage of someone who takes it for like a maximum of 4 weeks in order to treat testicular cancer. I had like Cipro as like the T blocker. When it comes to like using that as like for its quote unquote intended purpose of like suppressing testosterone in order to help when it comes to testicular cancer and whatnot, it is 50 milligrams to I think 200, and I got 50. When you take it just to like suppress a little bit of testosterone in order to transition, you take like 5 milligrams to like 20. So I had like a dosage of like 10 to 5x. Like when I switched my endocrinologist, they told me you gotta go to 10 ASAP. Taking this much for as long as I had to this point increases the risk to develop a brain tumor. When it comes to like the estrogen, I had I had gel. I was prescribed 1 pump. Obviously, I had very low estrogen when I was taking like blood tests and so on. Nobody sent me anything. Everything was like silent, so I assumed everything was fine. And I was basically being menopausal because I had you know, obviously no testosterone, and I still had low estrogen, so I had no hormones to function. I then experimented a little bit after a while because I was like, I'm miserable, I'm struggling. I even went on antidepressants, was crying so much and whatnot. I was struggling. I had no physical energy, I had no strength. I was basically sucked dry. I later on went to like 10 pumps. And when I got my levels checked, then suddenly I was like in the norm, in the average. When it comes to estrogen, you had super low T and low E. Isn't that super dangerous? It is super dangerous. Which is why trusting your endocrinologist and whatnot is like, you gotta do a lot of research when it comes to trans topics. When it comes to trans healthcare, you gotta do a lot of research because you can't just like trust that you're going to get like the proper dosage. When I told my endocrinologist that I'm like super struggling, they were like, oh, maybe we should like raise the testosterone. That scares me a bit because I don't know what I'm doing. So what I would recommend doing, go get your levels checked and go tell your endocrinologist to like send your like lab results of the things. Like in the lab result, because like my gender was still male, they compared my testosterone levels and my estrogen levels to that of the average male. Obviously, the estrogen level was fine and testosterone was low, and you know, it's like, oh yeah, it's trans woman. If you compared it to you know, female, then you would see that my estrogen level was obviously they're fluctuating, right? Like there are a lot of like different estrogen levels when it comes to the female body, because like because of like the period phases, like the 4 phases. So obviously there's a lot of like fluctuation, but when it comes to like the standard basic, like it was just too low, and I had nobody tell me anything about it, and they were just like, oh yeah, you should just, you know, go don't worry about like your estrogen, go raise your T, which I obviously didn't want to do because I was like, I'm trying to transition, and having like testosterone, like that would me over. The phases, I think, goes for 120 picograms per milliliter to 350. I think there are also phases where like the estrogen spikes really hard, but I think that's also like, you know, if you're pregnant and whatnot, like they're wild numbers. But you gotta go get your levels checked, go get your results and check the numbers. Also, use how you're feeling in your day-to-day life as an indicator. If you baseline struggle, if you can't get out of bed, if you're, you know, if you're just like fluctuating here, it could be, and like your levels are on the lower end, it could be an indicator for you to like raise your levels and see if that changes your mood. Obviously, if you have other issues that are also dragging you down, you know, it doesn't help. I'm also now on progesterone as well. That can also help with mood. There are things where I kind of fluctuate. Like I have like really lows, you know, like every 4 weeks or whatnot, I have like a low phase, which, you know, might be like a hormonal type of thing. But yeah, I would recommend, this is beautiful art, by the way. I would actually recommend like, go check your levels, get your levels checked. Even if you're on DIY, go get your levels checked and have them send you your reports. Because there's also like a hormone that is like used in order to transfer the estrogen and whatnot into your body. I don't know what it was called, like SP something. And for me, that is incredibly low, which is the reason why I needed an incredibly high dosage per day of the gel, which is why my endocrinologist said, okay, now you gotta go on injections. Recently, sneakily increased my dosage from 16 pumps or 8 milligrams a day to 18 pumps, 9 milligrams a day. And I feel even better. The 8 milligrams went bad, but the 9 milligrams helped. Yeah. Or is this looking like that one It's Always Sunny meme with the conspiracy theories? Trying really hard to notice where my lows are, but it's hard. Sometimes you only realize that you've been in a low phase when you get out of it. It's advantageous to have a diary about this stuff. I know there are a lot of like trans women who do have like a period tracker for these reasons. I know there are also like a lot of trans women who do have like the symptoms of cramps, which I had after bottom surgery sometimes, but I think that was like a little bit different. SHBG binds to estrogen and other sex hormones in the bloodstream, transporting them to the target tissue. And for me, that's incredibly low. That's why I'm struggling. So also get that checked. Because sometimes, sometimes people need like lower and sometimes people need higher estrogen because of that, because your body doesn't utilize it. Your estrogen level, like higher estrogen level, doesn't also mean like, oh, it's better and it's giving you better results. That is also like something that you have to be careful about, because when your estrogen levels are getting checked, it's basically like what your body hasn't used yet, right? Like what your body can't use. So if your body can utilize a lot and now you have like less estrogen like in your bloodstream, less estrogen to be detected, it doesn't mean that like your transition doesn't work properly or whatnot. A lot of these things are really individual. Hopefully when I get on HRT, I don't get as confused as I am now and how it works. I would definitely like talk with your medical care provider about these things. Also, like a lot of the things you kind of have to experience and you kind of have to see how it's like individual for your body. So there's kind of like a lot of info dump right now. I'm trying to like explain it as well as I can, but it's difficult. I don't know if it's affecting a ton of minority communities like trans people, but where I'm at, it seems that more and more people are having to advocate for themselves instead of being able to just trust their doctors. I feel like that's a general issue. Especially when it comes to like women's healthcare, and when it also comes because of like, doctors not actually taking the time to individually diagnose and explain things to people. Also, it doesn't help that like RFK Jr. and whatnot are spreading like conspiracy theories about like Tylenol causing autism and so on. Which for the trans sex ed. I'm trying my best. Obviously, I'm not a medical care provider. I can't explain you things in detail. These are like things that I had to learn through personal experiences. The things that like my endocrinologist told me, my new endocrinologist told me. Our medical community neglects women, especially black women. Don't even try to get them to care about gay and non-binary and trans people. Definitely affects people to be more anti-scientific. That is not good community building atmosphere. Yeah, of course. People are going to be much less trusting when they're getting like over on the day-to-day basis with those who are supposedly, authority figures. Doesn't help that like fascists really go in on like conspiracy theories and exploit these things. To circle back to Noble's question, I don't think there's something that I needed to be told before bottom surgery. I feel like this is just like something that I wish I was told before going on HRT. And I think another thing would have been, I feel like I should have went for DIY, because I just got over so hard by the medical community, basically, by my endocrinologist. Multiple times, because the therapist, like the first therapist that I had, I needed to get like a little piece of paper in order to be approved for HRT, and she wasn't satisfied with it because there was like a sentence missing, and then my therapist didn't want to give it to me. And this kind of like set me back like 3 years, where I had to like find a new therapist who was willing to help me. And I wish I would have just like started doing DIY, and I would have like educated myself more in trans spaces, in trans communities, because the resources are out there. There are good resources out there when it comes to DIY. It's just, getting like the medical treatment, getting the blood tests. That is something that, you gotta do regularly. Gotta do checkups in order to keep track on it. I wish I wouldn't have been so trusting to be like, everything is going to be fine when it comes to something as critical as hormones that you need for your body to function. I was doing DIY, then when I finally got to an actual medical thing, they underdosed me compared to when I was doing it myself, so I felt horrible for like 5 months. That's what I mean. A lot of trans people are getting underdosed because the endocrinologists and whatnot do not know anything about like trans healthcare, don't want to educate themselves on it, and they think that like what applies for like, for example, a cis woman would then also automatically apply for a trans woman. It's basically like saying, when it comes to like comparing a cis man, like a drug for a cis man, and taking that same drug, applying it for a cis woman, you have to do like a little bit less because of like the body. but you don't know how your body is actually going to like react to these specific things, which is obviously going to cause a lot of issues when you do not know how certain things react in your body, and you kind of feel like you're helpless because like, you know, they are the experts and they should know everything. Everything should be fine and official and whatnot. And obviously they care about you, but that's not the case. And if you raise concerns, then, you know, if you're a trans woman, then they're going to tell you that like, oh, you should like increase your testosterone. Maybe transitioning is not for you. A friend of mine said that they underdose trans people and make them jump through countless hoops purely to discourage them from transitioning. I can't see that. Like, oh, you come with a broken arm. Must be the high estrogen. It's crazy to me how like right-wingers, how transphobes are always like, oh, you're a medical experiment. Oh, it's so easy. They want to put you on hormones to make you like a guinea pig, and you're going to be like constantly reliant on like a pharmacist. No, they would give me like diabetes. They're going to make a lot more money with that. Like, especially in the US when it comes to like insulin, or there are like no regulations and they are just like increasing the prices because apparently like getting life-saving medical treatment is pay to win. There's so much brutality when it comes to like the medical field. And like the audacity to believe that like trans people were invented for big pharma to make money is so delusional. When cis people literally take the same medication. We are basically just being like the byproduct when it comes to like HRT. There's so many cis women who are menopausal because they have like, you know, low estrogen. We're going to give them estrogen. Oh, a trans woman can take that in order to transition? Wow, why not give that to a trans woman as well then? That's like making like a building. And you put in like a staircase and then a ramp. There's so many different groups that can utilize this ramp. Even if it's just meant for like those with a wheelchair, it can also help like other people, right? It can help those with like a stroller. It can help you with when you have like a bicycle. There's so many groups who are like benefited from like from these things. From like accessibility features. And that's kind of like how I view trans healthcare. It's a byproduct. It is helpful for a small minority of people, and it was mainly invented for like the for like cis people, but like trans people can utilize it too in order to cure something that is otherwise incurable. Disability and differently abled advocacy is important. Exactly.